Amina had saved every coin from years of washing, mending and early morning markets to buy her small brick house in Kijani, a place she made safe with her own two hands. The yard smelled of sun and soap, her clothesline a ribbon of color across the compound, and she kept the door keyed with a pride that felt like breath. One afternoon her parents came in a storm, voices high, faces wet with worry and shame. They surrounded her, not with hugs but with a demand: sell the house to pay Sada's debt, 150,000, a number that felt unreal in a village used to small sums and barter. They spoke of family honor as if it were a thing you could hand over at the gate, as if love must always bend to other people's mistakes. Amina listened. She said nothing for many long seconds, because words could be knives and silence sometimes holds more power. In the quiet she counted the cost, not in numbers but in the small things she would lose: the nights under her own roof, the sound of rain on her tin, the unlocked kindness she had built. Her heart stilled like a bird under netting, and behind the stillness something like resolve began to grow. She folded a shirt, smoothed a patch, and kept her hands busy so they would not see the tremor. The compound watched, the neighbors peered, and the village began to murmur, because when a woman's house is threatened everyone feels the cold. Amina opened the old trunk because she wanted to find a ribbon for Sada's child. Inside there were folded wrappers, prayer papers, and a thin white envelope with the bank's name on it. Her hand stayed cold while she slid the paper free. It was a loan letter, stamped and signed. Her name was not meant to be on it, but her signature was there, faint as if written by someone who feared being seen. The letter said her house stood as surety. Her lungs emptied on a single long breath. She held the paper as if it would burn her. Every small memory she had of that house came back like a slideshow. The clothesline. The cracked tile by the back door where she used to sit and shell beans. The nights she had saved for a roof. How could a paper take that? She ran her thumb over the signature and tasted metal in her mouth. Her mother found her before she could hide the letter. At first her mother smiled a practiced smile like a woman who had learned to hide fear. Then the smile dropped away and the true face came through, tired, hard, and sorry. Amina asked the question that needed no ritual: why? Her mother began to talk in low, clipped sentences. Saad had borrowed money in Mariela City. Her debts grew with each bad night, each foolish promise. The moneylender did not accept words. He wanted collateral and he wanted it now. Her father had signed the paper in town and said they would tell Amina later. Later was now. Rage rose in Amina so fast it made her dizzy. She felt betrayed not only by the signature but by the smoothness of the lie. Her parents had carried her future and folded it into someone else's danger as if it was a spare shirt. She thought of Saad and felt a second, softer pain. A sister can be a fault line in the heart. Amina wanted to shout. She wanted to tear the pages, to throw the letter into the street and stomp on it until the ink washed away. Instead she pressed the paper to her chest and listened to the house. She could hear the neighbor's rooster and the distant clack of carts. In the yard a little boy kicked at a stone and laughed. The normal sound steadied her. She felt anger, sharp and clear, but she also felt a new idea like a seed. Someone had to watch the signature closely. Someone had to find out who had forged it or coerced her. She folded the letter gently and hid it under the loose floorboard beneath her bed. Her hands shook as she lifted the board. She told herself she would not be pushed out. Not without a fight. She would gather proof, find helpers, and keep her home. The village had always been a place where everyone knew the shape of everyone else's life, and when Amina stood silent in her yard, the news of the hidden guarantee moved faster than the wind. At first it was a whisper between women fetching water, then it became a hard, steady talk at the market stalls, where Zuri, who sold tomatoes and salt, stopped weighing goods to listen. Zuri would not let it pass. She wrote a short paper with neat handwriting and the names of people who would stand with Amina, and she pinned it to her stall. The petition was simple: protect Amina's title, stop the sale, and investigate the signature. That piece of paper did a strange thing. It gave private grief a public voice. People asked for copies and carried them through lanes lined with bent mango trees. Men who had never signed a petition before put their names down, and young people who lived between their phones and their homes took photos and sent them to cousins in the city. WhatsApp rings and pings filled the nights as the petition moved from phone to phone, from cousin to cousin, until even those who had never met Amina knew her story. Some neighbors shook their heads and warned about family honor. Others came to the gate and sat on the step and said they would not let a woman lose her roof for another's mistake. Zuri stood by Amina like a steady stone, reading names aloud as they added up, and the list grew into a kind of shield. People began to talk about the lender in Mariela City, about Sada's debt, and about how power can hide in small paper corners. The rumor turned sharp when a young man recorded an interview with Amina on his phone and posted it. Her voice was quiet but it cut through the noise. She spoke about the trunk, the folded letter, and the nights she counted her coins. The village heard her and believed the woman they had seen mend shirts and teach children to read. With every share the petition moved from market to mosque to schoolyard and then beyond the village borders. Donations arrived, not much at first, but a symbol that people cared. A few local volunteers offered to walk with her to the town lawyer. Others promised to stand at the gate if men came to nail an auction notice. Not everyone agreed. Some old families muttered that debt should be settled privately. But the petition had already done its work. What began as a hidden wound became a public fight, and the neighborhood found itself on a choice. In the light of so many eyes, Amina no longer felt small. She felt seen, and that seeing made her brave. The petition, a plain sheet of paper, had turned into something else. It was now a voice for the house, for the woman who built it, and for any neighbor who might stand on the edge of losing what they had saved. Amina woke before dawn to the sound of a boot on her gate and the dull hammer of metal on wood, and when she pushed the door open there it was, a paper nailed to the gate with official stamps and a clean black line that said the house would be auctioned in 14 days. The words felt wrong in her mouth, as if someone else had written them. For a moment she only stared and the yard seemed to shrink around her. Then something in her tightened, not with fear but with a steady, hot refusal. The neighbors came quickly when they saw the notice. Zuri ran from the market, children followed, and the small knot of people grew into a circle of faces that were angry and afraid for her in the same breath. Someone cried out that this could not be allowed. Someone else reminded the group about the petition and the messages that had already crossed town. Amina folded the notice slowly and carried it inside like a secret too heavy to set down. She sat at the table and made one call, to an old mentor in Nyara, a woman who had taught her to sew and who had once helped her through a bitter landlord. The mentor's voice was calm and sharp. "We will not let them take it," she said. "You must move fast." Amina wrote a list with a shaking hand. First, find a lawyer who would look at the guarantee. Second, get witnesses who saw your signature never leave your hand. Third, keep the paper safe and copy it for the petition. Fourth, stall the sale with any legal motion they would accept while proof is collected. The plan felt wild because it asked the town's small power to fight something that smelled like money and city law. Still, with Zuri reading names at her side and a few young men offering to stand at the gate, the idea began to feel possible. They arranged for a quick meeting with a lawyer who had offered help because Amina's story had spread on phones. He said the notice could be frozen if evidence of forgery or coercion was shown and if a motion for an emergency injunction was filed. Forensic handwriting checks take time and money, he warned, but the injunction could buy days. The group decided to make those days count. Someone filmed a short video of Amina holding the notice and telling her story in plain language. It was uploaded to a shared group and within hours had been passed beyond the village. A crowdfunding note was attached to the petition to pay for legal fees and for the cost of an expert. Volunteers promised to gather witnesses and to find anyone who might have seen the moneylender or saw it in Mariela City. The mentor called old friends in Nyara who might testify about how signatures were sometimes taken under pressure. With the auction date stamped on the paper, the whole village moved like a single body toward one aim. Amina felt fear sit next to an odd, bright hope. The notice had meant to shut a door. Instead it opened every gate she had been too shy to knock on before. The family meeting was meant to be small and careful, a way to keep the wound from widening, but the air in the room felt like water before a storm. Amina asked for everyone to sit, even the ones who came with eyes that said they wanted the house to be sold and the shame to be washed. Her father sat stiff as a chair, her mother kept her hands in her lap like she was holding something fragile. Saad arrived late, hair a little dirty, cheeks drawn, and the moneylender's name hung over the door like a question no one wanted to say. Amina set a small recorder on the table. Her hands did not tremble much, though inside they felt like drums. She told the room what they already knew, then she pressed play. Her father's voice came out of the little speaker, rougher than he sounded in person, saying he had signed the guarantee because he feared being shamed in town, because people would look at their family and judge, because Saad had begged and he worried the debt would bring ruin. The voice cracked on the last words. For a beat the room was airless. Then the sound of gossip hit like wind. Her mother covered her mouth and began to weep. Saad dropped her head. Some people in the room made small sounds of anger, others simply stared as if listening to a wound. The recording made the private lie public in a way that papers and petitions had not. It was one thing to say someone had acted in secret and another to hear them admit it in their own voice. Outside, the petition names on Zuri's paper felt heavier, as if the signatures now had proof behind them. Word moved fast. A neighbor ran to the market to tell 2 women, who told 3 more, and soon a young man with a city phone had the clip and a short caption ready. He posted it, and the post found new streets and new hands. People in town who had only half cared now leaned in. The moneylender's agents in Mariula City got the audio too, through a cousin who worked at a bus depot and through a lawyer who had been watching the case. Men in suits began to ask questions. The lender's firm paused payments and sent a man who wore an expensive watch and looked tired. He called to say they would wait for the law to run its course. That pause felt like a small kindness that came from fear. The recording had done more than expose guilt. It shifted power. Where the lender had once seen easy paper and a weak woman, now there was a village that had the proof of wrongdoing and a legal team ready to act. People started to bring small things to Amina, food, a coil of rope, an envelope with money from someone who had never spoken to her before. The public shame that had tried to steal her life became the very thing that protected it. In the middle of family shame and public noise, Amina found a new voice. She spoke softly after the recording, not to beg but to tell the truth. She said she would not leave her house. She would fight. The room, the market, and the city all listened. A young neighbor turned on his phone and filmed Amina as she swept her yard, the soft scrape of the broom and the bright line of her clothes on the line behind her. He asked her a few gentle questions and she spoke like someone telling a long truth at last. Her voice was plain and steady. She told how she had saved every coin, how she found the letter, and how her parents had signed her house away. She did not shout. She did not cry until the story reached the part about the trunk and the hidden paper. The camera caught small things people like, the way her fingers smoothed a patch on a shirt, the light on the tin roof, the quiet laugh a neighbor made when he walked by. The video was short and honest, and someone in the next town put it on a social app. Then it was passed along, and then passed again. In a day the views climbed from hundreds to thousands. By the 3rd day a woman in the city had shared it with a journalist. By the week it had been watched by millions. People who had never heard of Kijani suddenly knew Amina and her little house. Comments poured in. Some sent prayers. Some sent money. A few offered harsh words, but most sent help. A crowdfunding link appeared under the video to pay for lawyers and a handwriting expert. Small donations came from people who said they remembered saving for their own first roof. Bigger gifts came from strangers who wanted to stop the moneylender from taking a home. City lawyers from Lomé saw the video and reached out. They wrote notes offering to work pro bono. They said they would help file motions, speak to the press, and find a way to force an audit of the guarantee. Interviews followed. Amina sat in front of a small camera and told the same story again. The journalists tried to make it flashy, but she kept it simple. She wanted people to know the truth, not to make her a hero. The legal crowdfunding paid for a handwriting expert who promised to look at the signature and for travel to the city so witnesses could speak to the court. Volunteers came from places she had never been. Young law students offered to organize petitions. A TV crew wanted to film her yard. The attention brought good things and hard things. Men called the house at night with threats. Amina and her neighbors grew careful. They changed their routine. They leaned on the village watch. But more hands kept coming to help than hands that wished harm. The tide was changing because the world had seen a simple woman sweep her yard and tell what happened to her. The broom in her hand had become a kind of signal. People who could help had seen it and they moved. The money collected paid for papers, travel, and the first tests. The lawyers from Lomé began to shape a case. For the first time since she found the letter, Amina felt less alone. The story that began in a small trunk had reached far places and brought the kind of help that could change the outcome. The courtroom was hot and full of people who had come to see if a small house could hold its ground against a city debt. Amina walked in with plain clothes and a steady look. She sat behind her lawyer and watched as the judge called the case. The moneylender's lawyer spoke first with a stack of papers and a voice that tried to sound sure. Then Amina's lawyer stood up and spoke in a clear, short way that everyone could follow. He showed the loan letter and pointed to the signature. He told the court how the paper had been hidden, how witnesses had seen Amina sign no such document, and how her father had admitted on a recording to forcing the matter because he feared shame. The lawyer asked for a handwriting expert and for the auction to be stopped while they checked the facts. He did not shout. He brought forward a woman from Nyara who spoke about pressure and shame in small towns. He called a neighbor who had watched Amina count her savings and who had never seen her sign any bank papers. The room listened. The judge read the document slowly, his face serious. For a moment no one made a sound but the scratching of a pen. Then the judge said he would freeze the auction. The word felt like a small bell in Amina's chest. The judge ordered a full forensic audit of the guarantee to see if the signature was real and to check whether the loan had been granted properly. He warned both sides to bring proof and witnesses and set dates for experts to come from the city. In the audience Amina's parents sat with faces that had gone dry. The small pride they had carried was gone and a deep shame had taken its place. Their heads were bowed and their hands refused to meet each other's eyes. Saad sat beside them, suddenly no longer able to hide. The moneylender's men watched from the back, their confident posture broken by the judge's order. Outside, neighbors who had come for support held each other quietly and then broke into small, relieved smiles. News of the court's decision moved fast through WhatsApp and Market Talk. People who had doubted Amina before now walked with their chins higher. The audit meant time and time meant chance. The lender could no longer take the house in a fortnight. The case had shifted. It was no longer only about a paper and a debt. It was about truth, and about what happens when a village stands with a single woman. Amina felt tired and oddly light. Her parents would have to face the consequences of what they had done. Saad would have to answer for her choices. The courtroom left clear marks on everyone who was there. It showed that a voice, even a quiet one, could change the course of a life when people listened and law folded back to protect the weak. Months passed and the hard days began to soften into quieter mornings. The court had frozen the sale and the audit showed the signature was not hers. In the end Amina kept her little house. Her parents came to the gate with blank faces and tired steps. They signed a public agreement in front of the village. The paper said they would repay the debt and that they would go to meetings to learn how to face money and shame without stealing from their child. Seeing their names on that page felt like a small justice. People watched them sign and the hush that followed was heavy and clean. Saad had to face those she owed and to fix what she had broken. She walked a harder road than anyone had planned for her, but the village held the rules clear and the lender could not use fear as easily again. Amina did not shout or make a show. She kept her door open and her roof in place. She turned her hurt into work. She used part of the money raised to fix the cracked floor and to buy a few sewing machines. She opened her gate to girls and young women who wanted to learn a trade. They came in the mornings to stitch, to mend, and to learn how to keep savings safe. She taught them how to count coins and how to read a paper without fear. The house became small and loud with learning and with laughter. People came from other villages to see how a home could become a place of safety. The story that once threatened to take her away now pulled other women in so they would not walk the same hard path alone. The parents who had signed the guarantee watched from the edge, and sometimes they helped carry a basket or mend a torn sleeve. The village told the story as a warning and as a promise. Amina's name became a quiet sign that a roof could be kept when people found courage and when a community would not look away. In the rooms where she once feared losing everything, she built a small sanctuary. Her gate was a promise that no woman should be forced to sell her home to save someone else.